It's time for another edition of Lewis at Large, 60 minutes of smart talk radio featuring guests from all walks of life in conversation with your host, Warner Lewis. So sit back and lend us your ears for the next hour. Now here with today's first guest is the host of Lewis at Large, Warner Lewis.
Well, welcome everybody to another segment of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck. And of course, that means some smart talk radio is in your future. And this segment we're going to have a lot of fun with. Very, very talented writer and just all around just good person, I think. Amelia Saltsman, brand new work called The Seasonal Jewish Kitchen, a fresh take on tradition. It's going to be a good one for sure. Who is Amelia Saltsman? Well, she is many things. First of all, she's the daughter of a Romanian mother and an Iraqi father who met in the Israeli army and immigrated to L.A., where she was born and raised. She's quite a cook herself. She sought out for expertise by such publications as Bon Appetit, Cooking Light, and The Vegetarian Times. She's also a frequent guest on KCRW's Good Food with Evan Kleiman. Anyway, we are excited about this. Amelia, how are you, my friend?
Very well, and delighted to be with you in Lawrence, Kansas.
Well, good. We're happy to have you here. Let's start here first. Your interest in food had to have been very interesting, again, with the kind of lineage that you came from with a Romanian mother and Iraqi father. Tell us what it was like inside your household growing up.
Well, it was pretty much a hodgepodge, especially considering that both my parents were college students. That's why they came to the United States to study. So not only did we have this eclectic mix, but we were in the middle of, you know what a student's life is like. So it was interesting. A combination of L.A. in the 50s, so you can imagine what the food was like then and there, and a fruit of memory. My father trying to recreate something his Iraqi mother made, which I've retooled into this wonderful cheese and honey phyllo pie in the book. And my mother, who didn't know how to cook when she got married, learning from her memories from her own mother, learning to make chicken soup, learning to make beef stew, classic American beef stew, what have you. So it was an interesting and eclectic upbringing.
Well, I know you've written and talked quite a bit, obviously, about food, recipes, cooking, etc. But this book, kind of interesting how you divided this up, did you not, by the Jewish calendar, kind of into 6 smaller sessions or seasons. Is that right?
Well, yes. My main focus has always been seasonal cooking and sustainable foods. I write a lot about farmers market. I wrote a very successful book called the Santa Monica Farmers Market Cookbook, which actually has national appeal. And so that was my bent. And when I looked at the Jewish calendar through that seasonal lens, I realized that they really linked up very beautifully. They were just a natural synchronicity between the two of them. And so I have always thought that 6 seasons is a much easier way, 6 micro-seasons, 2-month blocks, is a much easier way of understanding what's in season when. And that's exactly, those 2-month blocks really fit the Jewish calendar. It's not a coincidence because the Jewish calendar is lunar, and of course, so is the way we grow things.
What about Amelia? Let's talk about this issue and define for the Lewis at Large listener out there, specifically keeping kosher. Does the book refer to that? Are there recipes? And tell us about how that enters into this entire cooking world and also into the seasonal Jewish kitchen.
Great question. And in fact, I address it in the beginning of the book in a little section called The Kosher Question. There are so many ways that people identify as Jewish from the barely there cultural affiliation to a summer camp way to a very observant, keeping a kosher household sort of way. So there are a number of rules for keeping kosher, and I wanted this book to appeal and be usable for everyone. So what I did is I didn't use anything that was not in kosher keeping, so not mixing milk and meat, which is one of the main obvious rules that people are aware of, not using pork or shellfish or the obvious foods that aren't, that wouldn't be considered kosher. And really, we don't eat those foods every day. We don't have a week-long diet of pork necessarily. So this is a cookbook that happens to not have those foods. You'll never miss them. And if you want to make my grilled chicken with pork or shrimp, by all means. But I really wanted to just have this book available to everyone. And what I wanted to do, because I cook from whole foods, seasonal foods, when dealing with the kosher idea, I don't cook with substitute foods, and I thought surely there are ways to make things inherently compatible without breaking rules. So what I've done is in every recipe I've listed what type of recipe. Is it a meat recipe? Is it a dairy recipe? Is it a neutral recipe, which is called parev? Now, I went a step or two further, which is I wanted, since there are so many vegans today, the parev, which is neutral, means neither meat, not meat, but not dairy either, but it could have eggs, it could have honey. So I created a new category, right? I'm just right in there with the biblical scholars. I'm going to do that. So I created a parev vegan category. So anyone who's vegan can find this hugely long list at the back of the book where they can enjoy without making any substitutions. It's just a natural way. And then I separated again the fish category. I made that a separate category because fish is one of those foods in the Jewish tradition where you can have it with dairy. That's why lox and bagels and cream cheese is such a popular Jewish deli food. And you can have fish, without dairy. So I just left it in its own category. So it's very clear for the reader. You go to the back of the book if you want to know the kosher categories, if that's important to you, which recipes fall where. If you want to know which, recipes by course, there's an appendix that way. But once you're in the recipes, I give I love variations. I really believe that a seasonal recipe, any recipe, should be a versatile tool for the reader. So if it's a different season, I'll tell you. If you want to make it in a different season, I'll tell you what's a good substitute. In summer, do this. In winter, do that. I'll tell you different ways to use a recipe. So it's not just a one-off. It's a way to repurpose and use it in all kinds of different ways. For instance, I have a Romanian ratatouille called gvech. First of all, it's a very easy recipe. You just basically shove it in the oven for an hour, and it is glorious and caramelized. But it's not just one dish of tomatoes and eggplants and peppers. It is a way you could repurpose it into a sauce for a stew. You could make it a pasta sauce. You can stuff it into a pita with hard-boiled eggs and hot sauce and have an incredible sandwich. I want readers to be able to use the recipes. And when it comes to kosher, I've given options of how to convert things if they really need to.
Yeah, and if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio, talking to Amelia Saltsman, author of a really exciting new work, kind of just in time for the holidays, actually, believe it. It's Seasonal Jewish Kitchen, a fresh take on tradition, and she is, Amelia is quite traveled as far as a cooking expert. She's been published in Bon Appetit, Cooking Light, Vegetarian Times, and on and on and on. Question for you is, do you find, again, this is the Seasonal Jewish Kitchen, but you're going to find cultures and people from all faiths, walks, and creeds enjoying this. Is there anything in here that you feel a real traditional Jewish cook might find unusual and say, well, that's not really Jewish cooking? What do you think about that, Amelia?
Well, I hope there are going to be a lot of surprises like that, because I think people tend to think that whatever their personal history is the written word. And the thing about Jewish culture is that it's global. So you have Yemenite Jews who are cooking Yemenite food, and you have Eastern European foods who are cooking Eastern European food, which is what we are sort of used to. That would be chicken soup in the way that we're accustomed to it, with matzo balls, deli, brisket, those sorts of foods. But that's just one facet. So you're going to find the range of, Italian foods and that sort of thing that are based in history, but in tradition. But you're also going to find I'd love to reframe recipes such as borscht, for instance. Instead of, it's basically beets and water and something sour and leaves. Well, I've turned it into this incredible golden beet bowl of sunshine just with buttermilk and fresh ginger, and it's a revelation. So it's new and fresh and 21st century, but it's just a great soup. The book is filled with dishes. You mentioned, for instance, we're coming into the holidays. Well, these are books these are recipes that resonate for whatever holidays or whatever flavors are we celebrating Thanksgiving? Well, I think starting with a Yemenite carrot and pumpkin soup is a whole exciting new way to give a little extra perk to a traditional Thanksgiving dish. But it's very classic in the Yemenite tradition of seasoning with pepper and stock and those sorts of things. Not spicy necessarily, but a beautiful twist on a classic.
What about, if we go out a little bit wider than just the book, and we talk about just those that enjoy cooking, those that have an interest in cooking. You've been involved in this business and an industry for quite a while. What changes have you seen over the years with who's cooking food these days and who's interested in cooking, and how have our tastes changed?
Well, I think generally we are really seeking lighter, brighter flavors. On the one hand, I think generally we have a great interest in knowing who our grower is, getting closer to the land. Whether we do it or we just are interested in it, I think there's quite a movement. At the same time, we seem to be reaching back, whoever we are, into a desire to, for DIY and getting our hands dirty into, with not only gardening but in the kitchen, curing our own fish, perhaps corning our own beef, doing things from scratch that and having those flavors resonate in a modern way, using them with those fresh 21st century lighter, brighter ways of eating. So, for instance, I'm finding that a very classic Eastern European Jewish flavoring, schmaltz and gribbinus. So for the uninitiated, that would be chicken fat, rendered chicken fat, and chicken skin cracklins, which had long gotten kind of a bad rap. You know, oh, like that's so fatty and da-da-da-da-da. But just as we have come to appreciate in more adventuresome cooking things like pork cracklins or duck fat for making French fries, those sorts of things, chicken fat or duck fat to make duck fat schmaltz has come into the people are curious about this, and it was a great discovery for me. I didn't grow up. I mean, remember, I had a college student mom who didn't know anything about this, so I didn't grow up with gribbinus and schmaltz. What a revelation. When done well, it is a great accent, and I'm finding in menus in chic restaurants in Los Angeles by adventuresome chefs, these ingredients are turning up in menus that have nothing to do with Jewish cooking. They're just a great element. And that's something I really wanted to do is open up the idea of where ingredients and elements can be used, not just traditionally, but in today's cooking, and how to do that, how to make that work so you have the best of both worlds.
What about for those that, again, those double-income families, and they may have young children, and they're running from home to daycare, to work, to daycare, or off to soccer, or off to baseball, all those things. Are there recipes in here that are not necessarily ones that will take quite a bit of time to put together and prepare?
That is my middle name. I have been there. I have done that, and the thing is that cooking we need to be able to get healthy, delicious meals on the table for our family without breaking the bank or using the day. And this is something so important to me. All the recipes I create, for the most part, are very intuitive, very simple. I think that if you have really just a couple of basic techniques in your arsenal, say roasting, you need a sheet pan, some good olive oil, and salt, and basically you can turn out a different dish every night using that one technique, because the ingredient itself makes it a different dish. So if you can manage to get the best raw ingredients that you can find that have the most flavor, you'll be that much ahead of the game. So, for instance, the gvetch I was telling you about, there are lots of recipes like that. Chop up some stuff, put it in a pan, throw it in a hot oven, help your kids with homework. An hour later, it's done.
What about, why don't you do this as we start to kind of wind down here a little bit? And again, we're with Amelia Saltsman, well-known writer for Bon Appetit, Cooking Light and Vegetarian Times, brand new work called The Seasonal Jewish Kitchen, a fresh take on tradition. Share with us, if you would, maybe maybe a main dish recipe. Tell us one that you think that really has a broad appeal out there.
Well, if we're looking for a meat dish, the first thing that comes to my mind as we're heading into the colder months is the roast chicken with green olives and tangerines and Ceylon. And Ceylon is a date syrup. So basically what you're doing is taking a chicken and rubbing it with almost like a barbecue sauce that you're making, a glaze of date syrup, that's the sweet, some harissa, that's the spice, a little olive oil, and you're rubbing it all over the chicken, and then you're throwing that into an oven with some beautiful green olives and some tangerine sections that you haven't peeled them, you want skin and all, so just cut those into quarters, and some shallots or onions cut into pieces, into chunks, not finely chopped. throw that into a hot oven. You will be amazed. It's gorgeous. It's lacquered. It's different, but it's really exciting and simple.
Well, so you now have produced the Seasonal Jewish Kitchen, fresh take on tradition. What is the next thing for you?
The next thing is, that's such a great question. I'm so excited about the Seasonal Jewish Kitchen and making the connection, or should I say reconnection, and helping people reconnect past and present and seeing how our current interest in the seasons and sustainability actually has ancient roots. I feel like I'm going to be doing this for a little while, and I'm very excited about it, actually. I really love connecting with people. I hate to use the word teaching, but talking with them, helping them, feel that they can cook and cook well and not worry about it. So I think I'll be doing that for quite a while.
You'll be busy. Again, the work is called The Seasonal Jewish Kitchen, a fresh take on tradition by Amelia Saltsman. There's also a foreword by Deborah Madison. Amelia, how can people find out more, not only specifically about some of the other works that you've done, and also maybe get a copy of this book?
Well, they certainly can visit me on my website, ameliasaltsman.com. For lots of recipes and ideas and information, and where I'm traveling and appearing and teaching. And, of course, the book is widely available. Both my books are widely available either online through Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and in fine bookstores everywhere.
Well, thank you so much for sharing part of your day with us. Again, for you Lewis at Large listeners, the book is it's beautifully published. It would make a wonderful gift, and we're not here to do completely a commercial for it, but it's a very attractive book with some great ideas. And again, thanks for sharing part of your day with us, like I said earlier, and would love to have you on again in the future.
I would be delighted. Thank you so much, Warner.
You bet. We will be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.